from the McCowan's house, and I'll never forget, we got to the end of the alley right as we entered 6th Street. My mother holding my hand, and we could hear in this little storefront building the piano and the drums and the tambourines and the shouts and the praises. And I looked up at my mother, and she looked down at me, and she said, "You want to go in there?" And I said, "Yeah." Yeah. I don't remember going in, Sister Miller, but I remember the decision to go in. God's allowed me to continue to remember that this 56 years later. Amen? And we went in there and we began to go to that church, and it became a foundation of my faith, and it continued to stay with me even when I was out on drugs and living ungodly. And I'll never forget, my friend got out of prison, my best friend got out of prison, and his family, who attended an apostolic Pentecostal church on Clark Avenue across the street from McDonald's, had a coming home party for him. So we're out drinking our vodka and smoking our pot and snorting our tea, and toward the end of the night we shoot on over to this church because they're having a party for me.
That's real life.
It's real life. When we go in, and I remember, sitting in the church pews while they're just finishing up the service, and my one buddy, Richie, he was insane, and he's sitting there and he's like laughing and acting all crazy, and finally afterwards we go into the back of the building where they had pizza. And we had pizza and pop, and I'm standing there and I'm talking to the lady pastor, Sister Buttons. And I'm telling her, I used to work at a pizza shop, and if you ever need a deal, call me, and I'll make sure you get a discounted rate. You don't have to pay full price for pizza. I got saved, 6 months later. And I started, after our church service, I started to attend their afternoon service. Sister Beebe and Gail and Gary and Karen, all of us would go over there. My mother, we would go over there on the afternoon services. And we'd worship God, and Sister Button stood up there on a couple different occasions. She says, "I remember meeting Brother Timmy. He came to our church one day, and I got to talking to him, and I just found him to be such a pleasant young man." And she said, I told the Lord, I said, "Lord," touch that young man, Timmy. Said, "He's such a nice young man. He would make such a good Christian." And she said, "Now look, he's sitting here in church serving." That's God for you. I don't know who all prayed for me, but I know someone. And I know you've been prayed for, my friend, because we prayed for you on many occasions. Amen. There's so many that we can be touched by God because someone prayed for us. Someone prayed for us. So we thank God for that. We thank God that He's a merciful God. But we look and we see that Jesus was trying to tell His disciples, trying to teach them and prepare them. But yet they had a mind of their own. They had their mind set on His kingdom on earth. And He's telling them, no, they're going to take me, and they're going to betray me, and they're going to mistreat me, and they're going to judge me and convict me, and they're going to crucify me. But don't worry, I'm going to raise after 3 days. And they didn't hear any of that. No. Peter said, "Not so, Lord. Not so. I'll even die for you. I'll go to prison for you. I'll even die for you." And I want you to know something. God gave me a revelation in Sister Miller's church many years ago, 30 years ago. Remember the last act in the last chapter of John? Remember the passage where Jesus told Peter, said, "Peter, do you love me?"
Yes.
God gave me a revelation at Sister Miller's church. I don't know if you know that, Sister Miller. But what Jesus was saying to with Peter, He said, "Peter, do you agape me?" He said there's different words, 4 different words in Greek that means what?
Amen.
Agape means, do you love me enough to die for me? Remember He said, "I love you enough, I'll die for you." He said, "I agape you." Jesus, I agape you. I'll go to prison. I'll even die for you. Are you getting this?
Yep.
He said, "Peter, do you agape me?" He was trying to bring out a point. But I think I can sense a little bit of humor there. In this book they say that God's always laughing. He's got a great sense of humor.
Yes,
I believe that. He created me.
Amen.
That's right.
I'm all the time.
He had to have a good sense of humor. He created me.
I'm all the time saying I like his attitude.
He said, Peter, I can see the smirk on his face. Peter, do you agape me? He said, Lord, you know I love you like a brother.
No, Peter.
I love you like a brother.
That changed.
I phileo you, or filio you, where we get the word
Filio.
Philadelphia.
That's right.
Brotherly love.
Amen.
I love you
Hallelujah.
like a brother.
That's right.
And Jesus said, she feed my lambs.
That's right.
Then he said again,
One, number two.
Peter, do you love me enough to die for me? Do you agape me? He said, Lord, I love you like a brother. He said, feed my sheep. Then he says it a third time. But this time he changes it. He says, Peter, do you filio me? Do you love me like a brother? Come on. Do you really love me like a brother? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you. Have you ever been to the point where you just weren't sure if you love God? Man, you just mess up all the time. You're always falling flat on your face, and then you're like, God, I love you. I don't know. I can't say I love you, Lord, because if I love you, I wouldn't be doing this. Because you said if I love you, I'll keep your commandments.
Amen.
So why do I lie to myself? Why do I say I love you, Jesus, when I can't keep your commandments? But see, that's the key of keeping his commandments. When you realize I can't do it anymore.
Yes. Hallelujah. Yes. Amen.
I finally got the victory one night. I got in a big argument, and I'm hollering, I'm screaming, I'm carrying on, acting like a fool. And then all of a sudden, the news came on, and it says, I forget the term used, but it says, fallen evangelist, Jimmy Swaggart. And my heart broke. I'm standing in my kitchen. I can hear the newscaster talking about this great man of God who had a weakness in his life. Who, by the way, repented and got right and still preaching the gospel. He had a bump in the road, folks. We all get a bump in the road. You've never hit a bump in the road, and you must be superior, and I need to hang around with you.
Amen. That's right. So those speed bumps.
Bump in the road.
And I heard that, and I'm standing in the kitchen, and my eyes begin to well up with tears, and I begin to be broken. I ran to my bedroom. I jumped down on my knees, and I began to punch my bed. And I began to cry out to God. And I said, God, and I'm going to tell you the exact words. I hope I don't offend you. I said, God, if a great man like Brother Swagger can't do it, if a great man like Brother Beers can't do it, how do you expect me to do it?
Yes.
He said, I don't.
That's
I
right.
don't. I
Amen.
don't expect you to do it. That's why I came. You didn't say this. I knew. That's why I came.
Amen.
That's why I got on the cross.
Right.
That's why I suffered the pain and the misery and the brokenness so that you don't have to do it. All you got to do is yield to the Spirit. Amen. And when I learned that, it still took some practice. It's still taking practice.
Every day. Every day.
I still come short of the glory of God. I still stumble. But my point is I've learned to say, Jesus, your grace is sufficient. I'm not messed up, but I know that your blood cleanses me every time. I don't seek to look for sin. I don't seek out wickedness. I don't strive to be ungodly. But when I slip, I repent. I get under the flow of the blood and I keep on walking. Amen. If I gave up every time I messed up, you would have never known my name.
Amen.
You would have never got to know me because I would have given up a long time ago.
Jesus.
But see, the trick of the devil, Jeff, I'm telling you this because this is for you today, my brother.
Hallelujah.
The trick of the devil, and Mark, you too, the trick of the devil is to cause you to trip up and then put so much guilt and condemnation on you that you're not functioning.